Hi there, this is Only Frankly Speaking. This is one of my first videos in my series, Only Frankly Teaching. And in this video, I'm going to offer some advice for new or newer teachers. This is my first video using a green screen, so I apologize if there's any imperfections, if there may be some creases. I tried to iron it out as best as I could, but if not, well, I'll do better next time. I would have loved to have done this video in the current classroom I'm in for summer school, but unfortunately I have this going on, and the room is sort of in shambles with desks all in the corners so the ceiling doesn't collapse. We're going to a different classroom with my students, don't worry. The point is that this is why I can't film there today. And even though I'm going to be assigned to a new classroom very soon, I wanted to make sure that I get this information out to newer teachers before they start their school year, so that way they can hit the ground running. Now, I'm going to try and do this video as quickly as possible because you are a newer teacher and you don't have time. You are preparing for this school year, and you know what? You've got this. Regardless of what advice you get from me, you already have this as long as you have a positive attitude, as long as you don't assume you already know everything, and as long as you are open to learn from your experiences and realize that you are going to make mistakes, you're going to be just fine. My first year teaching, we didn't get any sort of preparation, not even a teacher orientation, not even a welcome to school. I literally showed up on the first day of my first teaching assignment, and in my teacher mailbox was a handbook that was like 4 pages long, handbook. And the handbook was basically your first day, and it was all things that how to take attendance, what to do in case of an emergency, things that you would think that they would have had a very large, detailed orientation on, but most schools at the time did not have that sort of preparation. It was assumed, well, you went to college, you should be ready, go. Most schools, or at least hopefully most schools these days, they do a much better job of having support for newer teachers. They have things in place that teachers actually are able to navigate their first few days or weeks with much better ease than I did. But in case you don't, or even if you do and you need a little more, this video will definitely help support you. I'm trying to steer clear of the obvious advice that you would get from just walking into a school or the teacher faculty lounge. I've been teaching for about 23 plus years, and I've taught from everywhere between inner city schools to the countryside, and I have a lot of good advice to offer. I also feel like I've always befriended the older teachers at school, so I feel like they've always given me their sage wisdoms. Do not discredit or disregard advice from older teachers. Many times older teachers are like, oh, well, they've been teaching forever. What do they know? Like as somehow they're no longer relevant. But the bottom line is they have been in education for so long that they have seen that things turn over and over again. And very rarely are things all that different. For example, let's look at curriculum and new guidelines and standards and new ways of doing things. Everything is on a cycle. I'd say it's about an 8-year cycle that you will see the same initiatives and ways of doing things, but it'll be rebranded with newer jargon terms to make it look like it's brand new. But the bottom line is this: good teaching, good things, good foundations, they're just constantly rebranded, and older teachers will remind you of this. So even though it seems like what they're doing is outdated, odds are they're doing the same things you would be doing. It's just that they're doing it the way that they learned it, using the language they learned it, and probably are way better at doing it than you will be because they have experience. Something else I definitely advise against is being too sarcastic or even roasting students. Some teachers do this on occasion, and if it's in good spirit and if it's appropriate, then okay, fine. But be aware that if you are sarcastic or you decide to roast on your students for attention, that is going to open the door for them to do the same to you. And are you prepared to have that kind of relationship with your students? Do you think it is appropriate for you to have that type of a familiar relationship with your students? Because let's face it, if a student is roasting you and you are roasting them, then you're kind of making fun at their expense and vice versa. And that is definitely questionable in the category of respect. Also, using these behaviors as a strategy for discipline, I would say you're walking a very fine line because, let's face it, you are an educated adult. So you roasting on them and making fun of them, I mean, It's kind of bullying, isn't it? Now, if a student makes fun of you, can you roast back in your defense? Of course you can. And there are certain situations where, you can loosen up and you can have fun. But if this becomes a classroom strategy where you're using roasting or being sarcastic as a means of ridiculing or disciplining a child, then I would definitely rethink that strategy, because there are better tools at your disposal as a teacher than making fun of students or giving them sarcasm. Teenagers are sarcastic enough. Do we really need to fuel that fire anymore? And something that always makes me laugh is when you have teachers in the teacher's lounge bragging about how a student said this and they said this in return and made the whole class laugh because they turned it back around to the student. I mean, what are you showing off? That you are a grown adult who has a college education that was able to outwit a 15-year-old? Bravo. Bravo. You demand. Or a woman. Or whatever in between. Something else I advise against is eating lunch with the wrong teachers. Now, eating lunch means hanging out basically in general. You will find that there are groups of teachers that hang out together and they are great colleagues. They work together, they support each other emotionally and with advice, and it's a very positive environment. And within these groups, there are safe spaces where you can vent your frustrations and, kind of get things off your chest. It can be very therapeutic. However, there are also groups of teachers that are very negative, and negative to the point to where they are just absolutely toxic. What you do want to avoid are those groups of teachers that all they want to do is complain. They complain to the point to where nothing would ever make them happy. Their energy is just toxic, and quite frankly, they probably don't like their jobs anymore. They very likely gave up on education a very long time ago, and you don't want to fall into that trap, because toxic behavior, that negativity, it is very contagious. And these teachers who like to complain and who are negative about everything, they are more than happy to add numbers to their ranks, because the more people who complain in return, you validate their negative feelings and attitudes towards their profession. And they will be really obvious to spot, because they will complain about things that there's nothing you can really do about. Like, for example, how admin does not support the cell phone policy, or you don't get parent support here. Again, it's great to have a group of teacher friends that you can vent with, but there's a big difference between venting because venting can be very therapeutic, but there's a big difference between venting and just moaning and complaining. Being a friend to your students. Now, you can be friendly with your students, but you definitely can't be their friend. I'm sorry, I know that some movements in education want you to have this really close relationship with your students, but I very much disagree. If you are an older adult and this is your second career, or if you are already a parent, then you probably already understand the importance of having that boundary between adult and adolescent. That boundary is necessary. That boundary creates a sense of respect. And unfortunately, students who view their teachers as friends, they often forget themselves, and they'll either, maybe not intentionally, but they may take advantage of this relationship, or they may forget themselves and end up behaving in ways that they would not normally in front of an authority figure. So again, be approachable, be friendly, be a source of support, but do not be a friend to them. You are their teacher. You are the adult in the situation, and that relationship must be respected and maintained. Now, this might seem obvious, but I'm just going to restate it because I still see this often in the media, and even I've seen it over the years on my own campus. Do not date the students. I repeat, look into my eyes. Do not date the students. Now, of course, this also means sleeping with them, flirting with them, sending them inappropriate pictures, which, by the way, I have seen all of these things in my lifetime occur on the multiple campuses that I have worked on. And let me just assure you, it never ends well. Are you feeling sickened by the idea of this? Good, because hopefully it will stick. Now, I don't think that people necessarily go into education with this predatory attitude that they're going to get involved with the student. I think that there's situations where there are just adults that have some psychological issues, and being in a situation where they're working with other vulnerable people, or maybe people who are simply open and sensitive enough to understand them, that these adults become delusional and end up in these precarious situations. So again, do not date the students. Oh, and I also want to dispel the myth that this is something that occurs with male adults on campus, because at least 2 of the situations that I just mentioned occurred with female adults. A female teacher, female mom, female mom. Like there's any other type of mom. Well, I guess these days I guess you can identify as any type of mom that you want. But the point is, you get the idea. It's not a gender thing, it's a mental illness thing, really. This one is for the younger teachers out there. I'm going to strongly recommend that you always dress professionally. Now, I'm guilty of being a very casually dressed teacher, but when I first started teaching, I very much dressed the part. I always wore buttons, often a tie, something to separate me from the students, because back then I was a very young looking teacher. And I think it's especially important for younger teachers because, I mean, you don't want to be mistaken as one of the students. And it also helps with administrators and other teachers because they will take you more seriously if they see that you are more professional and business appropriate in your attire. Because even though with an older teacher like myself, when I dress down, when I dress casual, it makes me look more softer and approachable. But when a younger teacher is dressed down all the time, it makes them look irresponsible or like they don't take their job seriously. And if you don't want other teachers and admin to treat you like a young person or similar to the students, then you need to separate yourself from them in their minds. And often that the first thing they see is how you're dressed. So that is one way of doing that. And also, especially if it's your first year, dress to impress. I mean, your administrator is going to be evaluating you, so you want to make sure that you have the best impression on them at all times. Join your union. Do not be one of those cheapskates who say, oh, I don't want to pay the $100 or whatever it is per month because teachers don't make enough money. You get it back 100-fold over time. Do not listen to teachers who argue, well, unions protect bad teachers. Well, you know what? Unions have also ensured that females have equal rights, people of different races have equal rights. Unions are also the reason why the students you're teaching are sitting in a classroom seat in front of you and not working in a factory 12 hours a day. So unions have a very positive impact. Not all unions worldwide, but at least in the field of education. They protect not just the rights of teachers, but also they maintain the integrity of education. Without a union, you would have classroom sizes of 50. Without a union, you would be paid even less than what you are now. Without a union, districts would probably be taking away your health benefits. So please support your union. Be part of your unions. Be active in your union. And be good to your union reps. They are going to be there to advocate for you when your rights are going to be infringed upon. And trust me, over time, there are going to be instances where you are going to need a union rep by your side. Also, are you aware that most unions can provide you with a lawyer if there is ever any sort of legal repercussions? Well, within certain circumstances, but the point is that you have that extra layer of protection there. So always, always, always support and be part of your union. In fact, I'm wearing a union t-shirt right now. It says, we are stronger. Our union chooses red because it's a very standout color and it's a great way to get people's attention, especially when you're within groups. I don't think it's intended to intimidate. I mean, maybe it's intimidating. I think it's just mainly a way of just saying, hey, look at us. We have a message. We want to be heard. No ands, ifs, or buts. Support your union. Befriend and honor other school staff such as the secretaries, the clerks, custodial, admin aides, all these other positions that are non-certificated. These positions are the heart and soul of your school. These are the people who are tried and true. They have probably been there before your current administrators, and they will probably be there to help you long after your current administrators are gone. They're often members of the community, and they reflect the community's values, and many times they have children who also go to those schools, so they're also active parents in the community. They are not to be taken for granted. These People have been in their positions long before your administrators have probably been there, and they will probably be here long after your administrators have moved on to other careers. And be extra nice to them. Bring them donuts every once in a while. Bring them burritos every now and then. If you have a class pizza party and you have pizza delivered to the school, then order an extra pie or two for the office staff or for the custodians. They're going to help clean up after that pizza party later on. They really do appreciate it, and they are absolutely worth it. Be humble. You're new. You're green. It's going to be very obvious to experienced teachers that you are new, and in these situations, when you go to offer your opinions in faculty meetings or ask redundant questions, you're going to get on their nerves. This isn't to say that your opinions don't matter or that your questions don't matter, but you need to learn that there are times and places for certain things. For example, don't ask too many questions at faculty meetings because very rarely are those questions answered in the way in which you want. Most of the time, it's going to get tabled to another time anyway. Save your really strong opinions for when they matter most. Being too opinionated as a new teacher, honestly, in fact, I remember years ago, there was a more senior teacher in a faculty meeting, and there was some sort of heated debate. And one of our newer teachers had a lot of opinions to offer on the matter at hand. And at one point, the senior teacher had turned around and asked this newer teacher, "How many years have you been in education?" The newer teacher said, "Oh, I've been teaching for 2 years." And in which case the senior teacher was like, "Well, until you've been teaching 7, keep your mouth shut." Now, although in not so many words, I would have said it more nicely, most people in the meeting, most other faculty members pretty much agree with that idea. And no offense, there is a good chance that whatever opinion or suggestion you have to offer, it's something that has already been thought of hundreds of times. Just because something is new to you, it doesn't mean that it's new to everybody else. It does not mean that your opinions are not valuable. It does not mean that you should not share your voice on situations or with matters that really count and really matter. What it does mean is that you should save that for when you truly want to make an impact. Another one is don't cry when you get laid off. It is not uncommon for new teachers, their first year or 2 or even 3, to be laid off at the end of each year. Schools often lay off teachers as a protective measure in case they don't have enough enrollment the next year to maintain the number of staff that they have. Districts sometimes increase layoffs as a way of sending out a signal to unions during contract negotiation times that they're in a budget crunch or that there isn't enough money to give the raise that the union is asking for. And some districts it's a year-to-year contract where you get laid off every year until you have tenure, and that's just how that district is set up. But for some reason, this is still a surprise to many new teachers. I'm not saying it shouldn't be upsetting, but I think it just kind of sort of comes with the turf that, you just have to accept it as it's a fact that this is very likely going to happen. And when it does, just be aware that, in my experience, in most situations, a good teacher pretty much 9 times out of 10 always gets rehired. Pretty much always gets rehired. It's very unfortunate that newer teachers get caught up in those politics, but I've been caught up in those politics many times, and in every instance, I landed right back in my position at the school that I started at. So again, don't worry. If you're a good teacher, you're going to get your job. And if you don't get rehired, well, then take this as an opportunity to try to level up. There's almost always a better position somewhere if you look hard enough. Now, this last recommendation is something I want you to table until towards the end of the year, or even maybe if you get another job offer during the school year, and that is do not fight a bad experience. Your teaching experiences year to year are so dependent on your admin, your environment, the levels of support from the faculty around you. If you have a school or admin that have really put you through the ringer and your school year, your first school year has been borderline traumatizing, you might want to ask yourself, is this a place you really want to return to? I have been in many situations where I have had the most horrible teaching experiences and I was laid off and upset, and then they'd go to rehire me and be like, wait a second, I don't want to come back. I want to go to a different school. If you're in that type of situation that's that negative and you don't have roots already established at the school, is it really worth fighting for? Is it really worth trying to make that situation better? Or do you cut your losses and move on? One of the best advantages you have as a newer teacher is that because you're lower on the pay scale or you're just starting out, you can very easily maneuver yourself through positions and districts. Unfortunately, it's when you've been in a district for 6 to 7 years plus that when you go to move, you end up taking a pay cut. So by all means, don't just jump into a position and stay because you're worried about having a job. Trust me, right now there are plenty of teaching positions out there, and there's almost always a better situation if you are in a school that has not been good to you. Well, that's all I have for today, and I will be coming up with a part 2 to this video. There was just too much to do during part 1, and also as I'm setting up for my new school year, I know that I'm going to be like, oh wait, I should have said this. Oh wait, I should have remembered this. So as I come up with those ideas, I'll write them down and get them into the next video for you. So that one will be coming at you real soon. So again, this is Only Frankly Speaking. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit the like button. And if you have not subscribed yet, then please hit that subscribe button. Wait, is it here or is it here? Hit that subscribe button. Yeah, here. And remember, subscribing not only supports me, but encourages me to make more fun videos for you in the future. If you start the school year before seeing my part 2, then I wish you the best of luck. And yeah, thank you for watching, and bye. And quick side note, in case you forgot, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Remember, subscribing not only supports my channel, but encourages me to make more fun videos for you in the future. You know, I was once very much guilty of being that teacher who roasted students. I mean, I didn't just go out and started going after students and making fun of them, but if they said something inappropriate, then I would regain control by saying something witty or to roast that student indirectly to get a chuckle. I guess it was my way of addressing the situation without getting angry, by addressing it with humor. And although my students loved it, they loved being roasted, it did open the door for them to roast me back in return, which honestly I had absolutely no problem with. But then as I got older, you know something, I started to realize that it's an unfair advantage that I am an adult competing with them for that type of attention. It's just not worth it. It's not appropriate. It took me personally a good amount of time to realize that. I mean, I guess it's not inappropriate. It's just, as teachers, especially experienced teachers, we have better tools at our disposal to re-engage students or to relate to our students. At least better ways than roasting them or using sarcasm in our interactions with them. Because let's face it, teenagers, they're really sarcastic already. I don't think they need us fueling their fire.